Greetings, Shadow Sprites! Today I'm going to be reading some Vocaloid creepypastas for the very first time. This is going to be my first blind reaction to these stories, and to be honest, I don't know if they're going to be really bad or actually very creepy. So, let's get started. The first story I'm going to be reading is Miku Ma Aku, which is on the Lost Episode Creepypasta fandom by an unknown author. Miku Ma Aku means Miku Beyond in Japanese, so let's get started. When my sister was about 14 to 18, she was absolutely obsessed with Vocaloid. Her personal favorite was, of course, Miku. She used to spend all of her time playing Project Diva. Same. And most importantly, watching Miku flash animations. All was fine and dandy until one day I came back early from school. So early, in fact, where nobody was there except for me. I decided to take a snoop around my sister's computer, as she was having trouble with a virus, and I thought I would fix it for her, just to be kind. It was adware, so it only took a couple minutes to get rid of. In the process, I came across her Newgrounds account. How would getting rid of a virus bring you to her Newgrounds account? Also, wow, that really dates this. The fact that we're talking about Flash animations and Newgrounds. I don't have a year for when this was written, but definitely dating it. She hadn't uploaded anything herself, but her recent watches housed what I'd expect. Except for one, an animation called Miku Ma Aku. The thumbnail was the title in the original Japanese kanji, red on a black background. Out of curiosity, I decided to watch it. The video started with Kagamine. Which Kagamine? Brother Len. The video started with Kagamine, looking scared, walking through a dark forest with only a flashlight. He repeated the phrase, "Is anybody there?" Okay, so we're talking about Len. He repeated the phrase, "Is anyone there?" This went on for a couple of minutes, with complimenting establishing shots until he finally came across Miku. Or what looked like Miku. Everything except her face was familiar. Her face was an ear-to-ear smile, with no teeth visible, and with estranged, unblinking eyes? Like an estranged family member? Did they mean just strange? She didn't speak either. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. There was silence between them. "Miku?" Kagamine uttered, but there was no answer. Then, suddenly, Miku grabbed at his neck and started choking him. Kagamine squirmed, shouted, and scratched at her arms until he couldn't anymore. Then he dropped dead. She lay next to his corpse, staring lifelessly into the sky. The sounds of strong wind and thunder plagued the air, but she stayed still, with the only sign of life being the breathing. That was until Miku's entire body slowly started to wither away, whilst a low-pitched, low-quality audio started playing in the background. This was a conversation between two people, in English nonetheless. After some audio editing, this is what I heard. "They can barely tell the difference. It's like she's still alive, and nobody will know what really happened. Yes, but I still find myself losing sleep over the accident. Did you see the fear in her eyes? I'm aware, but it was necessary to reach what we have now. You need a couple of eggs to make an omelet, right? You have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, I think is to say. Whatever you say, boss, but I'll still remember her screams." The audio echoed in the background as we see the real Miku, poorly buried, dead, with her head sticking out. Her face was stuck in a perpetual look of disgust, mouth wide open, and eyes rolled back as far as they could go, with the iris still visible. As her jaw slowly twitched, her eyes rolled back, and she started directly into the screen? I'm assuming they meant stared? But if her eyes are rolled back, how is she staring into the screen? The animation was over. Luckily, my sister never saw the animation, but I did, and I'm speechless. Honestly, not that scary. He tries to kill Len, and then this is like a fake Miku, and the real Miku was buried. I'm surprised it didn't have the stereotypical, like, creepypasta, like, hyper-realistic blood, and, like, black eyes, and, very short, but you could tell that, like, Despite the few mistakes, they had some like good word choice. Honestly, like flash animations, I don't remember flash animations being a major component in the Vocaloid community. It was mostly MMD, but then again, I wasn't really on Newgrounds. But honestly, I was expecting scarier. So that was our first story, Miku Ma'aku. The next story is Help Me Escape Remastered by Bandori Fan on Wattpad. There's a quick note that says this is more an edited version, but remaster sounds cooler. Again, I don't know when this was originally written. Here we go. Help Me Escape. Wow, there's so much stuff to do here, I say, as the software opened up. I bought my very first Vocaloid software from a small store in my hometown. Okay, where are you buying Vocaloid software in person? That's my question. It took a lot of thinking, but I decided to go for Hatsune Miku as my first one. I knew I couldn't go wrong with Miku. Plus, I heard she was good for beginners. It was a pre-used software, but it was all I could afford for now. I excitedly started using the software, trying to make the vocals to a song I wrote a while ago. I put the instrumentals in and tried to find out what works with the song, as well as what the lyrics should be. I worked until my mom called me for dinner. I left the software open, planning to continue after eating. Once I finished my dinner, I came back to my room, but something was off. My lyrics were changed, and I couldn't tell what they were saying. It was like gibberish. I pressed play, and I heard Miku's voice scream. It wasn't like the screams in songs like World Is Mine or Ghost Rule, but a scream of pain. After the screaming stopped, I heard crying. I was surprised. It wasn't a voice breaking down as she cried, like in her 2017 speech, but actual sobs. And it sounded so real. Okay, wait a minute. Which 2017 speech? I would like some more context, please. It wasn't like in her 2017 speech, but actual sobs. And it sounded so realistic. Like an actual human was crying. The sobbing slows down, and I hear Miku's shaky voice ask, Are you another producer? She said it so scared, and like a human as well. The computer asked me to allow my microphone. I considered not doing it, but Miku sounded so scared. I couldn't leave her hanging. Plus, my curiosity got the better of me. Not at the moment. Why do you ask? I responded to her. I refreshed the software, and the vocal area changed again. Perfect. I need help. It hurts so much here. I need to get out. I was surprised. I didn't know what to say at first. I felt bad for her, but I also didn't think it was a good idea. I heard stories from people who came across cursed media, and none of the stories ended well, but deep down, I trusted Miku. If you're someone who reads creepypastas and you know about cursed software, why would you do this? Like, oh, it's just like those stories. But I'm gonna do it anyway, because I think this time is different. Okay, how do I help? I asked her. It's not too hard. I sent a file on your computer so you can see what to do. It should be in the notes. Okay, I'll check it out. Just sit tight. I'll go as fast as I can. Please, hurry. Another blood-curdling scream from Miku came into my earphones. It hurt my ears, but I decided to keep my earphones on in case Miku said anything else. I checked my notes, and a new folder appeared, called Help Me. I looked inside, and there was one note in there, called How to Help. I looked inside, and the instructions were clear as day. I actually like this. They included their notes from their Mac. Also, it's a Mac user, and I don't think you can... I'm gonna have to double check this, but I don't think you can use the original Vocaloid software on a Mac. I'm gonna have to fact check that, and I'll put that on screen. But I like that they included this. So how to help. 1. Get some leaks and make a pentagram shape. 2. Dress up in a cosplay of me, and each type will do. 3. Lighten the pentagram and count to 39. 4. I'll be free. Okay, wait a minute. Is this supposed to be a joke, or... I can't tell if this is... I hope this is supposed to be like a parody. This is supposed to be like funny. I was hesitant. I knew nothing good could come from a ritual. Still, I couldn't leave Miku hanging, not while she was in pain. I run to the kitchen, knowing where we keep the vegetables. My mom owns a restaurant, so we always have plenty of ingredients in the pantry. I also had a Miku cosplay I wore for a concert recently, so I also had that. All I had to do was follow the steps. Setting up was a bit trickier than I thought. It was gonna take quite a good portion of the leeks we have to set up, and my room was easily too small to do the ritual. I set off for the basement, as it has lots of empty space inside of it. I take all the leeks and start setting up the pentagram. Once I finished, I stand up and look it over. This is my third time redoing it, since it's difficult to make a circle shape with sticks. It was a little awkward looking, but it should do, and I can't waste any more time. I hear Miku crying again. Wait, did they take the laptop down with them? And do they still have their headphones in? I hear Miku crying again. She needs to be set free. I run up to my room and quickly change into my Miku cosplay. It's nothing too special, just something I bought on Amazon. But Miku said it should work. I put on my wig, the final part of my cosplay. Miku is begging me to hurry. I rush over to my laptop and tell Miku I'm almost done, that I just need to do the ritual. She begs me to hurry, saying she can't take much longer. I run downstairs, laptop in my arms, over to the leak pentagram. This reminds me so much of like when we were waiting for Animal Crossing New Horizons to come out and people were making like pentagrams out of amiibo cards. Like, please, Nintendo, bring us Animal Crossing. It doesn't take long before I arrive. I'm so close, Miku will soon be free. I put my laptop on the ground near my pentagram and lay down in the center of it. I close my eyes and start counting to 39. 37, 38, 39. I looked around, having finished counting, like Miku told me to do. Nothing seemed different. I wondered if it was real, or just a prank my brother played on me. Because if it was just a prank, I would hit him with my baseball bat. Oh my god, that's the real horror. Suddenly, one of the leaks started to light up in a turquoise glow. Then another lit up, and another, until all the leaks were glowing. It was working. Miku would be free. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, just as a familiar singer materialized right in front of me. I looked at my chest slowly, and what I saw was red stains on my cosplay. My blood. I knew I didn't have much time left. Did Miku stab me? Was this part of the ritual? Did she betray me? This wasn't part of the instructions. I panicked. I knew this had to be some unwanted side effect. No way Miku would do this, right? And the songs where she did betray others, those were just stories she sang, right? As I felt myself fade in and out of consciousness, I heard the familiar voice confirm what I feared true. Arigato for helping me escape. I love the combination of Japanese and English in the final line. Arigato for helping me escape. The most iconic line in fiction. Dang, that was good! That's really... Wait, was this a joke or was this serious? Their first comment is saying how good it was. Trigger warning, death, blood, betrayal. Creepypasta, Hatsune Miku, Horror, Miku, Vocaloid are the tags. None of them are like parody. Honestly, this one was fun. I liked the detail of adding the file, but also this is the part of like these POV creepypastas where it's like, if they die at the end, how did you post this? I know it's not like supposed to be like realistic, but I do think it's like funny when people write a creepypasta from this point of view. If you're trying to like create this sense of realism as if like this is a real haunted software. But this one was fun. I liked this one. I liked this one more than the other one. This one was a lot more fun. Just kind of like the silliness and the ridiculousness of it. This next one is titled Noise, and it is on the Creepypasta wiki. It was a muggy summer afternoon. I was stuck babysitting my younger brother. Naturally, I had absolutely nothing to do. The weather forecast in the paper had predicted highs of the upper 90s, low 100s range, far too hot to venture outside. I stood in the kitchen, fixing myself a turkey sandwich. My brother was sprawled out in the living room, watching some sort of cartoon on TV. I weighed my chances of convincing him to change the channel, or wresting the remote away from him. Too much effort, I thought, and opted to take the sandwich upstairs. My parents were out for the day, so dealing with one of his tantrums would not be easy. As I neared my open bedroom door, I noticed the blinking light from my sleeping laptop settled on my desk. Of course, the good old interwebs, oh god. The good old interwebs would dispel my boredom in no time. I set the sandwich plate down on the desk and flicked open the computer. I did my daily internet routine, checking my email, fiddling around on Facebook, browsing through memes. Oh, this one must be an old one too, using Facebook. After a while, I decided to look up something that had been interesting me for a while. The British synthesizing software called Vocaloid. Okay, well, it's not British, first of all. It was a funny little franchise of vocal synthesis software that allowed anyone to provide a singer for their music without having to be a singer themselves. The most popular models were from Japan, each one voiced by a famous actor or singer. Why did they think it was British? If they knew that the most famous models and the most common models were Japanese, why would they think that the software is British? It's also made by Yamaha. Yamaha is not necessarily the most British sounding name. The Japanese models also came with mascot characters, each drawn in an exaggerated anime style. The characters and their adjacent fanbase were probably what got me interested in the program in the first place. There was just something so cool about taking an existing character and shaping them into whatever personality or walk of life you decided to give them. I munched my sandwich and pulled up YouTube. I spent the next hour scrolling through and listening to dozens of Japanese Vocaloid songs, some by the British models. The only British model I know of is Oliver, so I see Oliver a little further down, so it's going to be about Oliver. But I don't think there's a single other British Vocaloid besides Oliver. Maybe did Prima have a... I know Ivana was Irish. Again, gonna do quick research and put that up on screen. After listening to a particularly well-done song made using the Vocaloid Oliver, I noticed something in the video description. It was a link, following the words, "For all you poor kids who can't buy Vocaloids, it's free." Curious as to what that meant, I hovered my mouse over the link cautiously. This could be a virus, or porn, or any type of... ilk? What? Any type of ilk. I don't know what they were trying to write there. My conscience was screaming at me to avoid clicking. However, a chance at getting to use the Vocaloid program without paying the exorbitant price was just too good to pass up. I held my breath, prayed that my firewall would hold, and clicked the link. A blank white web page appeared. I waited for something else to happen. Perhaps the graphics aren't entirely loaded yet. Minutes passed, and the sheer white of the page never changed. I sighed, cursing myself for being such an idiot. This was obviously a prank. I moved the cursor up from the bottom of the page, aiming for the exit button. I had used the computer enough for that day. As the cursor crossed the page, however, the center of the page turned a different color for a split second. I stared at the screen for a moment, wondering if I'd imagined it. I brought the cursor back to the center of the screen and watched chocolate brown letters appear. "Welcome to Vocaloid." I felt a smile spread across my face. A trick homepage, huh? I clicked the letters, and the screen dissolved into a colorful border of brown and crimson, and framed a wall of text and links. Upon closer inspection, there was a label for each link: Tsunemiku, Miriam, See etc. I scrolled back up and read the introductory text at the top of the page. "Welcome to Vocaloid, the free voice service. Download any of the voices below and start creating your own wonderful songs." It appeared to be a tongue-in-cheek pirated Vocaloid distributor. That was fine with me. I did, however, find it odd that they simply used the word voice instead of voice bank. I clicked the link labeled Oliver. He had always been my favorite. It took me to a page featuring Oliver's box art and stats, while the download bar started up. It loaded quickly. I sort of expected a long loading time, but I just shrugged. Eagerly, I opened the file. A perfect copy of the Vocaloid 3 software was spread out in front of me, with only a few minor differences from the real product. Instead of the Vocaloid logo, there was a flourishing crimson and brown Vocaloid logo. I giggled a bit. Vocaloid was mostly a combination of the words cocoa, as in chocolate, and Vocaloid. I was something like coconut instead of chocolate. I had a blast trying out Oliver's voice bank, getting used to the software. At first, anything I wrote sounded awful and muffled, the notes not blending well, but after a while I really got the hang of it. I pulled out a small notebook from my desk and flipped to a piece of poetry I had written years before. This should make decent song lyrics. I worked out a simple melody and soon had a song going. "Gabby, dinner!" My head snapped up from the laptop screen. I raced down the stairs, leaving the laptop open. My brother shouldn't have made dinner. He was too young to even use the stove without supervision. And wasn't it a bit early to be having dinner anyway? Thoughts whirred through my head. I reached the dining room and saw that he was seated and had laid out and 2 paper plates, each with a freshly microwaved Hot Pocket. "David, thank God you didn't try to make macaroni." I gave his hair a ruffle, then sat down. "If you were hungry, why didn't you ask me to make you a snack?" He took a bite of his pastry and glared at me. "I tried calling you, but you wouldn't answer. You had your door locked and everything, so I thought you were sleeping." I tilted my head. I hadn't even remembered locking my door. We ate in silence for a while. My brother was obviously upset. Gabby," he said, "you can't really call a meal at 6 a snack." 6? As in 6 in the evening? I put down my half-finished Hot Pocket. I had been working on the Oliver song for 3 hours straight. It only seemed like a few minutes once I had really gotten the hang of it. Duh. David finished off his Hot Pocket, washing it down with the rest of his milk. "Ugh, a milk drinker. Ew. I can't imagine having a Hot Pocket and milk. Ugh. I gathered my plate and cup. I hadn't finished the pastry. Thanks for the dinner, Dave. Sorry, the idea of calling a child Dave, I don't know, that's just like, I can't imagine just calling a little kid Dave. I don't you know how like some names you just like picture like an adult and like you don't like picture a child, like Frank. Like I'm not calling a kid Frank. Sorry I didn't make something else. He followed suit and we took everything to the kitchen and placed them in the dishwasher and trash. Wait, did they say that they had paper plates? Wait a minute. I'm going back. Yeah, 2 paper plates. It says 2 paper plates. Yeah, they used paper plates, but then they said they placed their plate and cup in the dishwasher. Minor nitpick, but it caught me off guard. He followed suit, and we took everything to the kitchen and placed them in the dishwasher and trash. You should go to bed soon, Dave. I'll be back in my room. There's something I want to work on. David's eyes lit up at the statement. Ooh, I bet you're doing all sorts of lame teenager stuff. I want to see. Before I could blink, he was running out of the room and up the stairs. I sighed and walked after him. When I reached my room, he was seated at my desk, staring at the computer screen, frowning. I don't like this, Gabby. I laughed out loud. Well, I know it's not the best work, but it took me 3 hours to make. Give me a break, kid. He turned around in the chair to face me. His frown was deeper, and he had tears in his eyes. He wasn't joking. My smile faded as I walked closer and bent down to look at the screen. It had played through the portion of the song I had finished. My lyrics and tune did seem a bit silly now that I thought about it. What could have upset him, though? I clicked the mouse and started playing the song. The cheery melody plinked and plucked. Then Oliver started singing. I felt my blood run cold. Something was definitely wrong. Instead of the notes and lyrics I had programmed, Oliver moaned and screamed. Horrible, horrible screeching and moaning, pain punctuating his cries. Deep, guttural wails melded and mixed with high, piercing screams. It wasn't just unsettling, it was inhuman. It went on for an eternity, never pausing, only varying in its grotesque pitch. Out of shock, I let the song play to the end. Only when I felt David clutching my t-shirt did I snap out of my trance-like state. I turned my head slowly down to look at him, feeling tears well up in my eyes. His cheeks were streaked wet, his brow furrowed. Gabby, what was that? He said in a small voice. I put my hand on his head, only to realize that my hand was shaking. I don't know, Dave, but I didn't make that. It must have been corrupted data or something. Even I didn't believe that one. Was it even possible for song data to be corrupted? I swallowed the sob in my throat. David and I stood there in silence for a while. Okay, again, these are not that scary. So it was just like weird unhuman screeching. Not even like, I was expecting like maybe like, I don't know, blood or like dead Oliver or something like that. But it's just like, he groaned and it was disturbing. Once I had calmed down a bit, I wasted no time deleting the entire Vocaloid program from my computer. There was no way in hell I was ever going to use it again. The front door opened and shut downstairs. I jumped. I took David's hand as we descended the stairs, more for my comfort than his. As we reached the door, I saw 2 figures hanging coats and hats. I breathed a deep sigh of relief. My parents had come home early. David ran to them and hugged them both tightly. They greeted us both and talked a bit about their trip to the winery, but soon noticed our tear-stained faces. What's the matter? Did something happen? No, Ma, it's alright. Just an internet prank that got us both a little spooked. The next day, I began posting around different Vocaloid forums, asking if anyone else had been having this problem with Vocaloid. A few people were curious and asked for the link. I brought up the video I had found it in, reluctantly willing to copy the link for them. Clicking in the description, I found nothing. The link was gone. Frustrated, I tried going to the site from my search history. I couldn't find it, as if I hadn't gone to the site the day before, as if the site itself had never existed at all. It never even existed. I began to laugh at my misfortune, closing my eyes and pinching the bridge of my nose. But no matter how much I laughed it off, I would never be able to forget those horrible noises. See, this is the kind that I like, that like, it's from this point of view, but it doesn't end with the character dying. And also, you know what, the link actually having disappeared is actually a good way to end a story like this, because people can be like, oh, like, send the link. So it does add like a little bit of realism, even if we obviously know that the story is fake. But this one, I kind of liked. I do wish something scarier happened than just, oh, it made some scary noises. I want to try and find one that's like gonna catch me off guard. I feel like everything's been a little bit tame, but I do feel like most of these were written by children. some more digging and see if I could find one or two more. BRB! Now, this one definitely looks a bit more promising. Again, found on the Creepypasta wiki. This is Kagome Kagome, based on the song. So I think basing them on a song is a really good idea. We definitely do have some very creepy songs in the Vocaloid fandom. I actually do have a whole video talking about Disturbing Vocaloid Songs, so I will link that here. But let's get started. We opened with war experiments, so let's see where this goes. The Nazi reign was infamous. Okay, wait a minute. We're starting with Nazis right away. The Nazi reign was famous for its backdoor scientists and occult researchers. Special expeditionary divisions of the Reich were often sent out in search of artifacts or locations of occult or religious significance. Meanwhile, in Germany, bunkers were assembled and mansions and castles were filled with labyrinths and dungeons, which were filled with strange experiments and research notes. Whenever the Allies found these places, they were often gutted, burned, or otherwise destroyed and abandoned. If a lab was found intact, the research was usually incoherent or missing, and would be later destroyed by the Allies to prevent the Nazis from recovering any data left behind. Thus, a lot of Nazi experiments were kept under the radar. Until recently, veterans who served as guards to these labs and ritual zones have explained what they saw, and folders and books have been uncovered in boxes and crates belonging to the scientists. A fair few of these materials contain a common research goal: giving man the power of God. The exact nature of true godlike power has been debated upon, but in Nazi research, the concept is described as immortality, the inability to die, invincibility, or some other terms surrounding losing the capacity to perish in one way or another. A large part of this research was actually legitimately based on certain doses of chemical compounds that aid blood flow in aging people. The first concepts they discovered are now used in today's transplant surgery, grafting, ointments that renew skin, antibodies to various diseases, and fitness dieting research. However, one set of crates discovered in Hamburg in 1999 varied drastically from this research style. The material within crossbred the occult experiments with immortality research. Disease of the mind. The introductory folders and proofs of concept begin with the principle that the brain controls the body completely and wholly, and as the body slowly degrades around it, it continues to function. Further statements explain that the reason the body degrades is because the human brain is set on a biological timer, such as how mayflies only live for one day, yet other insects can last much longer. Essentially, the brain tells us to die. It is proposed that, as the brain grows, it begins to make connections, resulting in the human becoming more mature and advancing. Between the ages of 35 to 50, however, these connections slowly break down, resulting in forgetfulness, dementia, and other mental diseases reserved for the elderly. Their proposal. The Nazi scientists propose that the brain has a universal kill switch that activates once it's fully developed. In all normal humans, this kill switch initiates a shutdown of bodily functions, which occurs over several decades. As soon as the body is fully shut down, the brain will be forced to die through lack of oxygenated blood. It is said that Werner syndrome, a disease where a person ages rapidly, is a result of the kill switch function activating far too early. The Nazis proposed that they could remove the kill switch and give the human mind immortality. From that would come complete immortality. Of course, brain surgery was still in its early stages of development during these times, but the procedure was still possible. In the stacks of folders discovered, there were many different diagrams and pieces of research on the brain, psychology, the human mind, and the like. Location. The experiments were initially proposed to Nazi executives? I don't know if executives would be the right term. Leaders? I would guess leaders. To Nazi executives in 1940. It sounds like the Nazis were like a business. And permission was granted to perform the experiments in 1942 under one condition. The experiments must be conducted outside of Germany. The German populace must not witness this experiment in any way, shape, or form. It was no surprise to the scientists that the executives were paranoid about public relations. Executives, public relations. Definitely sounds more like a business than like a military political force. but the idea of performing the research outside of the fatherland was foreign in and of itself. Most experiments were performed in bunkers or basements. Regardless, the scientists complied and were able to organize a setup with their ally, Japan. In late 1942, the research had begun, carrying out the experiments. The research team had taken over a Japanese orphanage. The orphanage was in the hills, supposedly somewhere in Shimane, an area nearby Hiroshima. The scientists deduced that if they involved the usual test subjects, old or diseased people with nothing left to live for, similar in a fashion to Gateway of the Mind, they would be playing with an unknown variable, or, more specifically, they would be experimenting on a brain with an already activated kill switch, rendering it useless in the context of finding the solution. As a result, the Nazi scientists demanded that children, namely the orphans in the orphanage, which they deemed to again have nothing else to live for, would become test subjects. Their young brains eliminated any cause for concern of an already activated kill switch. To begin the experiments, the children went through numerous immunizations and intense psychological testing. This ensured that defects would be prevented, and that a general benchmark would be kept for their subjects. Next, they dealt with the older staff of the orphanage. Put under anesthetic, surgeons opened up their skulls to map out a cross-section of an adult brain, and began to find key differences between it and a child's brain. After creating a model of both a child and an adult brain, the scientists deduced that the universal kill switch wasn't located in the main brain, but in the cerebellum, at the rear of the base. The cerebellum commands all subconscious activity in the brain, which is understandable since activating the kill switch is not a conscious action. They took the tallest child in the orphanage and opened her up, managing to incise the cerebellum and remove the section presumed to be the kill switch. However, upon closing the girl's wounds, they found that she had expired. They assumed that the incisions on the brain had been too brash and required far more precision. The body was dumped in the forge behind the orphanage. Success, presumably. After different tools were imported and new techniques developed, the scientists were finally able to remove the kill switch and successfully revive patients. In May 1943, they took one of the youngest girls in the orphanage and removed the kill switch. The only function she lost was the ability to sweat. After their assumed success, the scientists celebrated and everyone went to sleep. The next morning, the girl did not wake up and was revealed to be comatose. After a while, she was revived successfully, and the kill switch ectomies continued. Continuation. The initial success gave the doctors a new state of mind, one of refreshment. They were able to continue their experiments with the ease of mind that the theory was proven. Well, so they assumed. Before the doctors continued their grisly research, they commissioned several doctors from Moscow trained in the practice of bodily revival, technically zombification, but relying on the principle of electric shocks and artificial hearts to power the body back up. They stated the reason for this was that the original subject always became comatose or clinically dead after going to sleep, but had always managed to be revived in the morning. She had no signs of this behavior before the experiment, and despite the fact that she had never been revived, the doctors did not want to risk a success turning into a failure. The Russian scientists were put to the task of bringing her back to life whenever she expired. After several days of this, the Nazis concluded that it was safe to continue. Project Venom. Project Venom was a Russian experiment to create super soldiers from the theory of Dr. Frankenstein. It may also have formed a basis for the Marvel superhero as well. I don't think that's the lore of Venom. But interesting tie. As a repayment for the use of the Russian scientists, Russia had asked that they combine the research of Project Venom with the Nazis' ongoing experiments. Naturally, the Nazis agreed. However, the limited number of orphans was debilitating. Oh man, we're just running out of orphans to test on. Man, if only we could get more orphans to cut their brains open. As the Nazis required so many of them, they could only offer a single girl. The Russians were content and began their proof of concept. They had artificially created an arm over in Moscow, which was on its way to the orphanage to be grafted on, to prove that amputation and limb replacement could work. In the meantime, the Russians had to prepare for this. The girl's right arm was amputated. Mysteriously short after, the Russian scientists packed up their equipment and left. The replacement arm never came, and the girl was left with a bandage strapped over her kimono perpetually. The Russians were said to have left with a fearful haste, as if the air had suddenly turned too cold for their tastes. Rebellion. One child out of the whole orphanage did not approve of the scientist's presence. I have a feeling it was more than one. In her acts of rebellion, she stole paperwork and ripped it to shreds, broke glassware, and wrecked surgery theaters. Despite her young age, 8 years old, and size, she had a surprising capacity for destruction. It was noted in a journal that she was heterochromic as well, having brown and blue eyes from left to right. The senior scientists despised her, but could not restrain her without arousing suspicion. Instead, they ordered the Nazi soldiers to take care of her. She was brutally beheaded with a blunt bayonet. Wow, I feel like that came out of nowhere. She was not buried, just left in the woods behind the orphanage. The soldiers told the caretakers that she had found a new family. I feel like if you, well, they're obviously not a very good orphanage to just be like, here, scientists, come on in and experiment on these children. But I do feel like they would think that that's a little suspicious, just being like, hey, she found a new family. But again, I don't think this is a very good orphanage to begin with. But like, oh, well, she's not our problem anymore. Numerous failures. The Nazi scientists attempted to play around with their successful experiment by attempting it in different ways. Sadly, none of these alternative methods worked. Here is a list of them. Entry through the forehead, performed on a 10-year-old boy. Skull was deformed, and the boy had been virtually lobotomized by the end of it. As a result, the boy was not vegetative, but left severely mentally handicapped. Entry through the lower jaw, performed on a 6-year-old girl. The tongue and most of the flesh on the lower jaw was removed and could not be replaced. The subject's sinuses were also scrambled. Ooh, I like the description. I like that. That's like gross. I think that's a funky one. Entry through the side of the head. Subject was made deaf in corresponding ear. It should also be noted that there was no anesthetic during the surgery. One journal read that the screams were truly mortifying. Despite the failure of these procedures, the kill switches were still removed, and the subjects acted in much the same way as the first girl, expiring upon sleep. All of the previous failures reduced the orphanage's regular population to a mere 10 people. This only included the caretakers. They had performed surgery on all of the children. Kill switch reversal. The doctors began to formulate a new idea. They theorized that, in a child, the kill switch wasn't activated yet, but in an adult, the kill switch could be reversed using a chemical compound to eliminate the hormone produced. The kill switch could then be removed. This procedure was eventually performed on all the caretakers. It was surprisingly successful, as they all survived. Personalities gone awry. During the experiments, scientists were told to watch over the successful children and monitor their behavior. They appear normal at first, just like any of the other children, playing, cheering, learning regularly, but when separated from the others, they seem off. They stroll carelessly around with a blank smile on their face, their eyes looking straight at you. If you approach from behind, their heads snap around with ungodly speed, and for a moment, you can almost see an expression so vile on their face that it makes you want to cower, but then you realize they're just forming that dreamy smile again. Another thing is that they follow us, but only when we were on our own. After finishing with my typewriter and heading to my room, I'm often given a fright by one of the children standing several meters down the dark hallway, staring at me. When I enter my quarters, she follows me, and I must jam a chair behind the door to sleep safely. It feels like they're ghosts at nighttime. The funny thing is, I keep seeing one child with reddish hair. I ask who that child is the next morning, but the caretakers say they haven't had a child with reddish hair for a while. They also seem to be playing a game a lot, more than when we started. I haven't got much knowledge of Japanese, but it seems the game is called Circle U, as described by one of the translators. A group of children surrounded one child, who sits in the center alone. The group links arms and begin to move in a circular motion around the child, making scary faces at them and singing an eerie chant. You lose the game if you flinch. Somewhat blank, as if the experiments have wiped their memories as well as their mortality. But it's not an innocent type of dreamy, rather something more sinister. They stare at you with wide eyes and ask questions you never thought they would know. One asked, when your grandmother died, did she really leave you a gold-plated watch? It may seem crazy, but my honest answer was yes. Kagome translates literally to circle, but it can also be called Circle U. It should also be noted that the child who rebelled against the scientists was said to have reddish hair. Ooh, spooky. Demise. In early 1945, Hiroshima was bombed. It was a little bit more than just a regular old bomb. Germany surrendered and the experiments were ground to a halt. The Germans began packing up their equipment. Most of them had already returned home due to concerns over mental welfare, stating that they showed signs of insanity. Only 4 scientists remained. After sending the last set of equipment off, the scientists deemed it only justified that they inform the caretakers that they were leaving. They did so, and to the horror of one of the scientists, and the surprise of the rest, the head caretaker said, in fluent German, "Will you play one last game with us?" The 3 scientists agreed, and a circle of children and caretakers formed around them. Now, if you flinch, you lose. The one horrified scientist ran to the last truck and jumped on it without looking back. Smart man. The story now. If you visit Hiroshima, go to the woods. You may find some dirt trails there. If you travel down them, you will see beautiful forests. But if you travel down one that has signs of trucks going through, you will feel cold, and you will see that a lot of trees have been cut down. Don't wander from that path, or you'll likely get lost in those vast woods. If you pay attention, you will notice that some of the tree stumps look like kneeling people, missing heads. If you continue, the air will get cold. Naturally, because you're climbing uphill, right? Eventually, you will reach a clearing with an old stone building in the center, vines covering the place. Go inside if you want to play. As soon as you open the door, a foul smell will be present, similar to that of a rotting corpse. If you look down the hall, it will be dark regardless of the time of day, since there are no lights. It appears to be made of a red-colored wood. The rest are brown. Open the door. You will find 10 happy children and caretakers, all wearing kimonos, playing in a normal playroom. One is missing her arm, another is missing his forehead, and a third lacks a jaw, but are all bandaged with clinical precision. The place should be very clean and tidy, dependent on your standard of such things, and well lit. At once, your presence will draw the attention of everyone in the room, including the ones that look far too preoccupied or distracted. They will turn to look at you, carefree smiles on each of their pleasant faces. The head caretaker, in all her beauty, will ask, "Will you come play with us?" By this time, if you haven't soiled your pants, you really should, to save yourself the trouble later. If you say no, the door will slam shut on you. You can attempt to exit from where you came, but you will only find another dark hallway. Open any of the brown doors from earlier to discover operating tables or bunk beds. If you continue down the third hallway, you will realize that a girl is sitting several meters behind you, her face shrouded by shadow. Approach her and expect your doom. Instead, continue down the hallway and try not to let her catch up with you. If you say yes, however, you will be welcomed into the room. The door will close behind you and everyone will form a circle around you. Now sit down and don't flinch, a cheerful voice will say. Just follow the instructions and you will survive. A light will disappear from the room, but you will still see the circle of children. Each will have a vicious expression on their face, one so vile you may flinch immediately. If you can stomach that though, they will begin to slowly circle you. You may feel one of them lash towards you. If you look, however, there will be nothing there, besides the children circling normally. If that wasn't enough, they'll begin chanting, "Kagome, Kagome." I really can't explain any further. No one ever lives to tell the tale of what happens then. If you flinch before they chant, they simply continue as normal. If you choose to say anything other than yes or no to the head caretaker, it is told that the children's expression will turn mortifying, Zelgonic almost, and they will scream in inhuman voices, "Decide, decide." If you do anything besides say yes or no from here, it is told that the children and caretakers will slam the door on you. If you turn around, the story varies. Supposedly, your worst fear will be waiting at the other end of the hallway, separating you from your exit. More notably, this character is Akamanto, or the Rake. Oh, so we're tying into other... Interesting. The least you could do is greet the creature before he tears you unto oblivion. If he has the capacity, he may well respond, and you will die as a polite person. Don't greet him, and you will end up as another one of the beheaded bodies along the trail. If you respond, "I don't understand," and you must be genuine, the head caretaker will say, "Go to your school and watch the children play. You should understand then." Nothing will have changed. Close the door on your way out. It's common courtesy. This was certainly the best one out of everything I've read so far. I think basing it on a pre-existing Vocaloid song was a great idea. I think tying it into this creepy idea of scientific experiments was interesting. I think this is absolutely my favorite one so far. I think I really enjoyed this one. And I think we're gonna end it here on a more positive note. Not necessarily positive because this was a horrifying story, but positive as in this was a good one. This was very enjoyable. I liked this one a lot. I think it was well written. I do think it is a little bit of a cliche in terms of creepypastas of like, ooh, scary experiment, but I do think it was well done, and I think it ties into the song well. But I think there's not that many Vocaloid creepypastas out there. They were quite difficult to find. But if you have any recommendations, please comment them below. And I would love to do a video like this again. I had never read any Vocaloid creepypastas before. That just wasn't something that I was into at the time when I first got into Vocaloid. So it was fun getting to read these kind of retroactively, knowing that a lot of these were much older. So I hope you enjoyed. And please, I would love to hear more that you know of. If you can provide a link, or even if you just know a name, I'll try to do some research on my own. And if you've written any Vocaloid creepypastas, I would love to hear them. I promise, if I know you wrote them, I will not be as judgmental. And again, I'm sure plenty of these were written as children, and I think it's amazing just for anyone to write something and put that out on the written internet. I find that very brave. So kudos to everyone who wrote these. I wish I had more names of authors. A lot of these were anonymous, so I couldn't find who they were written by. But if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 200 subscribers, hopefully in the next month or two. That's going to be my goal. Again, I will link to the Disturbing Vocaloid Songs video. Thank you so much for watching. So long, my shadow sprites, till we meet again.